Good evening. Thank you for joining me tonight. And this is the 203 Fight Network, and we are live. Wednesday night, May 24th, and this is your Tough 25 Redemption review. This is your Tough 25 Redemption review. And welcome. I'm Mark G. And this is the 203 Fight Network. And we got some news on the fight tonight and the fight between Julian Lane and Ramsey Nijem, as well as what next week's fight will bring. Coming up. And we are back. All right. Interesting night. Interesting night on Tough for the Redemption. Episode 6. And I gotta tell you, it's not going too well for Team Garbrandt. That's for sure. That is for sure. But that's okay. I'm sure they're going to get at least one win. I don't know if it'll be next week, but we will find out. And once again, I'm Mark G. And I'm going to go over tonight's episode real quick. But before I do that, I do have a couple things we want to talk about. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Cody Garbrandt versus TJ Dillashaw has been canceled. There is a new co-main event for UFC 213, which will be Robert Whittaker versus Yoel Romero for the interim middleweight title, with Shevchenko and 135-pound bantamweight champion Amanda Nunes will be in the main event. So second year in a row during the UFC fight week that we will see women headlining the card. Of course, last year when Amanda won the title against Miesha Tate. But that's not what we're here to talk about. Cody Garbrandt's back injury is a little bit too much for him, I guess. And I guess he's, somehow he's pulling out of the fight. So the stem cell and everything that they did when he went over to Germany down there to Dana's, little, medical facility that's cured him of all his ailments, I guess couldn't help him either. So TJ is looking for a fight with Mighty Mouse in August, and that's probably going to end up being one of the UFC events that's before the Conor McGregor Floyd Mayweather fight, which I'm sticking with my prediction in my video that I did last month in the state of the lightweight division, where I talked basically extensively about that. And that entire division, Conor McGregor, Tony Ferguson, Nate Diaz, what they all should do. Check it out. It's in the got it somewhere in the cards there. You can probably click to it somewhere on the screen. I'll check it out thereafter because we are running live. And once again, I'm Mark G. Thank you for joining me here on the channel. Just discussing a little UFC tonight. We're going to go over Tough 25 Redemption Episode 6 and Let Me Bang, which is probably one of the greatest titles ever, besides probably the first Let Me Bang episode. But to get back to this whole TJ Dillashaw, Cody Garbrandt situation, if I'm for TJ fighting Demetrius for the 125-pound belt, I'm not exactly opposed to it, but I do find it may be a little disruptive to the division. Say, if TJ happens to beat Demetrius, then why wouldn't he? Is he going to stay there and try to continually make that cut to 125, which I'm sure is a pretty tough thing for him to do, and being that I don't believe he's ever competed at anything at 125 in his adult life, as far as I've read and from as far as I've heard. And I like TJ. I'm a fan of both these guys, TJ and DJ. They're both great fighters. I think they're both pretty, really good for the sport. So, but should they fight for this title? Now I know it means a lot to be able to hype this up, and in the long run, this will probably do a lot more for Demetrius if he's able to beat TJ. If they do end up fighting for the flyweight title, because just gives him would give him a lot more of credibility on his record, just because unfortunately not too many people take a lot of heat in a lot of these flyweights, which most of these flyweights are phenomenal fighters, really skilled. I just think a lot of people get seduced by the heavyweights or the bigger weights, and that kind of they look a little bit differently. And Demetrius has been so dominant in that weight class, so we'll see. He says that he's waiting for his contract to fight Ray Borg. Ray Borg, would be a pretty good opponent for him. He is probably the rightful guy for the title shot at this point, and we'll see how this plays out. The one question that nobody's really asking, and I haven't seen this come out in the media, and that's if they're not gonna, if TJ's not gonna end up fighting again until August, how much longer is Cody going to be out? Do you have to start putting a interim title for the bantamweight and, maybe do something like that and match some of these couple of these bantamweights up for an interim? We have Marlon Moraes, who's one of the top bantamweights in the world, making his debut in next week in Brazil against the Sunsao, who's trying to make his comeback there. Off a little bit of a slide that he's been on, and a little bit of up and down, and we'll go over that just as much as we're going to go over the preview for the Gustafsson Teixeira card that's coming up here this weekend. So stay tuned to the channel for that. Also stay tuned to the channel for an episode Friday of a little more talk about Mayweather-McGregor. When's it going to happen? When I think it's going to happen, and how fast do I think they're gonna come out with this deal. So let's get to the Tough 25 review here, episode 6. Starts out with Julian Lane. Lane's basically just talking about a couple of his past experiences, and how the fight kind of came about there. Ramsey had was been out for a couple of years. They finally, really touched on that. A lot of these guys have been out for a while. Julian Lane is never, he's never really had a real UFC fight. He's fought, twice on the show previous, and he fought, one time. He did have a win in the elimination rounds back in the day, It's how he was obviously able to get into the house. But he did not, have the greatest of a showing. In his, he is a tough kid, though. I do give him a lot of credit there, and that's his career and his fighting. They showed a lot of his family life there back in Ohio. He trains jiu-jitsu with Dante Rivera, who's I think a season 7 alum. I remember Dante. He trains out in Jersey, so he, Julian was talking about how he has to leave his family, and whatnot through, to train out of state, and so. This was, all these episodes I can already tell, and like I've said in previous reviews, that these episodes look like that they're going to, they're really going to have that cookie cutter thing to them, and they're going to keep this same little format that they're doing. And it's kind of working. I think that this is probably one of the more unsung Ultimate Fighters, really, in a long time. One of my favorite Ultimate Fighters, dare I say modern day, just because... My favorite, obviously, are like the first 5, really. Especially if you think about, because BJ Penn, and then, that year where, Nate Diaz won, season 5, season 3, Tito and Ken Shamrock won, Bisping won with, and then there's Matt Hamill. You had, obviously, season 2 with Rashard and Joe Daddy, who's fighting next week. So, and we'll obviously we'll talk about that. This was definitely fun. It was good. They got into this fight, and I just really want. Let's talk about the fight here. This was really interesting because I thought Julian was going to gas himself out. It started out they kind of got in there, and Julian was hitting him with some jabs. Ramsey did look a little rusty at first, just not as crisp. I've seen Ramsey fight obviously for a long time. I remember when Tony Ferguson knocked him out, and but Ramsey is a tough guy to submit, and he usually is pretty more crisp with his striking kind of than what he was, and he has great he has great transitions. I've always thought, his striking to and transition into takedown, I thought was pretty good. Obviously, and you talk about who does it the best. I mean, but he's really good at it, and he's always seemed to. And he did this in the fight. He passed his guard real well, but Julian had him, man, and I thought there was a couple times when Julian was gonna submit him, but like I said, Ramsey's a tough guy to submit, and he powered through 2 different guillotines. This was a really action-packed first round, and it was you can kind of see it kind of unfolding. I thought, as soon as he's able to get out of that choke, he was just able to take control from there, and he got a takedown on Julian. The round's kind of coming to a close. They're within a minute or so, and he gets that takedown. He passes guard, he mounts him, he's just landing shots on him. Julian spits his mouthpiece out, and I kind of thought he was trying to. If you know him, that kid's not going to quit. So he was probably trying to tell him, I'm fine. But as he's spitting his mouthpiece out, he's getting punched. And just as he was saying that, Ramsey started to grab him for a choke. But the ref, ended up stopping the fight. Anyhow, couple protests in there. A couple protests by Cody. It was a good fight, man, and I think I would not be surprised if we see a lot of these guys kind of maybe fighting in the finale, on the undercard of the finale. Some, at least a few. I mean, they have to. That would be a pretty cool thing. That's what they kind of used to do back in the day. It was like the guys in the house. Even if they lost, as long as they there was a ones that they picked, the fight. Sometimes it wasn't always all the guys or girls, but it wasn't always that that got a chance. But They would match up certain fighters, from the show, and the winner would basically, there was like a second chance. There's almost like a second chance thing when it came to the finale for some of the contestants there. But the second really interesting thing, and I really wanted to talk about the fight while I was remembering it, but the second real interesting thing was the weigh-in. And obviously that happens before the fight, but there was just so many altercations about so many altercations with, just trying to check and see what time we're at there. So many between these two coaches. They were talking about it really. What I was catching a little bit on Tough Talk, and I got to tell you, it almost is starting to almost seem like it's all about them, and sometimes that's, even when you're putting something out there, you're putting that, it's Team Garbrandt, team versus Team Dillashaw. It's not so much about the fighters, and it seems like it is more so about these coaches, and these guys are just jawing at each other. And but the more interesting thing was Justin Buchholz was getting into it with Ludwig, and and it just seemed like Buchholz was just kind of tired of not getting some due credit, and not just that, because that's there's been a lot of things. Excuse me. I followed this whole alpha male Dillashaw breakup, and there's been a lot of different things said, and I've seen a lot of the long in-depth interviews with Faber and Dillashaw, especially the ones, went on the MMA Hour with Helwani, or, Ariel Helwani, and, a couple others. Chael Sonnen's podcast, You're Welcome. I know I've heard a lot of these guys on all those outlets, and I got to tell you, like, TJ's really been saying basically the same thing throughout throughout the start. And I remember, they kind of mocked him really at first, because he was going to get, the amount of money and he was getting from the sponsorship. And I remember TJ saying, like, he still wanted to train, but, who knows what, really happened or whatnot. But it's a shame that that team, which was like seemed like such a close-knit team, just kind of fell apart for a certain amount of time. But they recovered well, man. And I always thought that, like, hey, man, give freaking Buchholz a chance. They were bringing a lot of guys in even after the fact and before the fact, different coaches, because, Justin was trying for his fight career. And, I always thought he did a fine job, man, with those guys, with Mendez, with Benavidez, all those fighters that you would see him. Lance Palmer is really good, and I just thought they had a good core. And I thought one of the things that made Alpha Male great was the the tightness and the close knit to that team, and how they all kind of stuck together in the way they trained each other. And even though a lot of them were in the same weight class and things of that nature, but they're doing really good right now. It's unfortunate about what happened with Cody. I'm real disappointed. That's one of the fights this year that I was looking forward to the most. It seems like the fights that you look forward to the most, especially this year, because think about it, UFC 209, right? What was that fight, man? What fight were we all like, oh man, I cannot wait for this fight. Oh my God. Tony Ferguson versus Khabib Nurmagomedov. Okay? And what happened? We all know, it's pretty well documented. Khabib had the weight cutting issues. Let's not even go there. But now, come on, you can't tell me you weren't looking forward to TJ versus Cody. Not just because of this show and their interactions on the show and how he's freaking grabbing him by the throat and Cody tonight was running around like a freaking maniac. That the official from Nevada was telling him, "Look, man, you got to be professional. You got to be professional." And he was saying that to Buchholz as well, who was basically challenging Ludwig to a fight, saying, "Why don't we fight on the prelims?" And I'm gonna tell you, I would love to see that. But Cody had mentioned something about Ludwig, being old and not having a chin, which is another thing I think is really true. But I've seen the last few fights, but I mean he was also knocked out by Dan Hardy, who's got a left hook that could will hurt most human beings. So, but anyway, so these guys are fighting at the weigh-ins, and it was all even almost kind of egged on and started by Ramsey Nijem, who was mentioned something about Dwayne being there or not being there. It's just a little banter going back, and then Cody's got a short fuse, man. At least that's how it's being edited out, and the way they're making it seem, it's kind of crazy. But I hope his back heals up. He's an exciting kid to watch. He's a really good fighter, man. Obviously, you beat Dominic Cruz the way he beat Dominic Cruz, and I want to see Cruz come back. I don't know what he's doing. He seems like he's taking a little bit of time. So it's tough, man. It really is. So I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but I figure that's gonna a little better. Giving you a quick week recap and a little bit of in a review. I liked the show. I liked the fight. I thought it was pretty interesting. It really was not going to be an Ultimate Fighter 25 redemption unless coaches were freaking going at it like these guys were. I mean, this was like breaking up. Like Elliot Marshall, who was a pretty big dude and was the biggest guy there, was trying to, it was crazy, man. Like a lot of the back and forth, and Cody thought somebody went after Justin or said something, and then he jumped. It was insane, man. But Cody's ready, and if y'all remember the McGregor-Faber season was, I think, what, 22, 21, 19, 18. I can't remember. These numbers are tough to freaking keep track of. If you remember, I mean, I don't know. Put it in the comments if you're watching. If you're watching, man, thanks. Hit that like button, dislike button. Either way, just let me know that you're watching. That's kind of how I know. But I hope y'all are tuning in. Just trying to give some insight tonight on the UFC and on the Tough 25 episode 6. Just went over the fight. You can always kind of go back and watch. I'm not gonna keep us too much longer. It was only an hour show. I don't want to. Sometimes I ramble on. That's why these reviews, if you see them on my channel, please check it out. You'll see reviews. Also my podcast, The Objective Perspective, which episode 7 I have coming up on Friday. I think I might do it live, depending on how this went. He's trying to upload all these videos for YouTube. It's just kind of a pain. Sorry. I mean, they just take a long time and end up, being up till 2 in the morning. I do have a regular job right now, anyway. But to get back, next week on the Ultimate Fighter 25, we are going to see Season 2 winner and former lightweight title challenger Joe Daddy Stevenson taking on Justin Edwards, Randy Couture's long-lost son. Just kidding. But it should be an interesting fight. This fight was put together by Garbrandt. It was their team pick. They showed that at the end of the show. Ended the show with Dana White talking about Justin Edwards and Joe Daddy Stevenson. Couldn't really get too much of an insight on what they thought was going to happen there. But it should be an interesting episode next week. And also keep in mind there is a wild card. One of the losers will be able to come back and fight. So they mentioned that in the beginning of the first episode. I remembered that when TJ kind of threw it out there that maybe Julian Lane should get the wild card. That would be kind of cool. I'm guessing you might see Lane or Eddie Truck Gordon. It might not be the end of Truck Gordon. Or you can also possibly, Hassan. He's one of those guys that loves to capitalize on those opportunities. So I am going to get up on out of here. This is supposed to be a short video live. This is almost even just kind of a test. I hope it came out fine. I'm going to have to check it out and see how it came out after the fact. But if you are watching and you made it this far, I do appreciate it. I'm Mark G. This is the 203 Fight Network. Please stay in tuned to the channel because I will have a preview on Friday for the upcoming Teixeira versus Gustafsson fight, which definitely should be very interesting. That is a really good card going on there in Stockholm, Sweden this weekend. Stay tuned to the channel. I will give you a nice preview and prediction. Who do I like in that fight? Who do I like in the main card? I'm going to preview. I think I'm going to preview the entire card. It's a pretty big card. There's a lot of there's some good names on it, and there's some young names on it as well. So, but thank you so much for tuning in. Please hit that like button or subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Most likely you have not, but but check it out. I'm going to give out some previews on the UFC and obviously reviews on the show here, and I will be reviewing Dana White's show that's coming up this summer on Tuesday nights. But thank you for joining me, Mark G. This is the 203 Fight Network, and I'm out.